Micah Mills, thank you for being here. Thanks for taking the time to see us. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing with HydraDAO, CryoDAO, and CryoPets.
Et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, there's kind of all these organizations now. Yeah, yeah. So CryoPets was the first one I kicked off. 2022, I founded it. 2023 really got it going with the Thiel Fellowship, and that was sort of the catalyst there that really got things going. And then sort of quickly realized that we don't only need to innovate in the cryonics part, and sort of maybe the end of all of this, as you could see, because it's the whole body cryopreservation, right? This is kind of the culmination of this entire field. We also need to advance a lot of the science along the way, right? So this is when I founded CryoDAO. I think just a couple months after I founded CryoPets. And then, we funded a ton of research there. I've had a lot of cool results. And then early this year, January, we founded HydraDAO, which is focused on replacement research. I shouted a lot about replacement in 2022. Jean Hebert, I've always been a big fan. I read his book. I don't know if you're familiar, Replacing Aging.
Yeah, and we had him on earlier.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Such a fan of his, and I always felt like if I wasn't working on cryo, I'd be working on replacement. And after 2 years went by, and no one, it still felt like replacement was just not getting its moment, and people weren't really paying attention to this. I was like, I guess we got to do this now too, and that's when I founded HydraDAO. Of course, now we have ARPA-H and these organizations kind of moving replacement forward, and stuff that was just announced a few days ago, which is so exciting. And a lot of things going on, but that's a few of them.
So what you do is help with funding the people who are working those type of projects. Is that right?
Yeah. So at CryoPets, this is my startup. Right, so we don't. That's we perform the cryopreservation of the pets and store the bodies and so on.
Oh, you actually perform?
Yeah, so we do the surgeries, we do all of that, and then but at the DAOs, that's where we fund labs around the world to work on these technologies, and even now with the launch of the American Biostasis Foundation, which we're starting in Texas, building a big cryo facility there. It will also in part be a research facility, and so a lot of projects that we do want to do, we're going to be able to spin out in-house now, sort of at our own research lab, and that enables quite a bit as well. So yeah.
And did I hear you right earlier that you said you work with Peter Thiel?
Yes, I'm a Thiel Fellow.
A Thiel Fellow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I every year they choose anywhere from I think like 15 to 20 Thiel Fellows, and they give you $100,000 to drop out of school and to start a company or something like that.
Okay.
And of course I dropped out when I was 14, so I beat him to that a long time ago, so it was I didn't have to do the dropping out part. I was already there, but no, it's an incredible network, and of course you get in kind of the Thiel circle of things, and it was a huge catalyst for starting CryoPets. And
okay, so are you still involved with? I know you're a Thiel Fellow, but do you still work with Thiel or his staff, or was it kind of here's your like endowment, so to speak?
No, so yeah, it really is. It's like a fellowship is not just sort of like an award. There's events that we do sort of multiple times a year, and it's this network that you really get opened up to. I've now, I've been able to chat and talk with Thiel, multiple times now, which has been great. And even on some of his most recent podcasts, he's talking about cryo, and so that's awesome. And so no, it's you're very much you stay in it, and it's been pretty. And in fact, we haven't really announced it yet, but sort of a soft announcement is one of the new Thiel funds that is actually investing specifically in Thiel Fellows, is sort of the lead behind the new CryoPets funding round.
Very cool.
So yeah, it's been instrumental in pretty much everything we've done.
Okay, and is it through that fellowship that you're able to get other high-level connections? I think I've heard a little bit that Thiel is not the only guy that you've been working with.
Yeah, no, I mean we have some of the best. We have some of the best investors in the world now for CryoPets. We had some really cool guys at my last company back in 20. I've had a lot of companies, I guess, but I was at my last company that wasn't in the longevity field. That was actually right before I jumped into this field. We had Naval, we had Sawhill, we had Homebrew, a really great fund. We had just a lot of really great investors.
Okay.
So it took me a while to kind of get out of the Utah sphere where I grew up, where I didn't know what Silicon Valley was. I sold I think two companies before I knew what Silicon Valley was. Right?
Oh wow,
These
okay.
were, one was a Minecraft server host, and another one was a we were doing cloud hosting, and this was before I even knew what Silicon Valley was. So it took me a while to kind of get in that area, and then getting in with the Thiel Fellowship and all that was just really took it to the next level, I would say. So
All right, you seem really young to have had the experience of starting and building and selling multiple companies already.
Look, it's just time, right? And what I did since I left school at 14, I before I turned 18, I had 4 years to really dig into these things and fail a lot and have some successes. And my first acquisition, this wasn't like a $1 billion acquisition, right? It was a Minecraft server host. We sold it for a couple $100,000, but it was very impactful for me as a teenager, right? And so it's just all time. I recommend if you feel like you can handle it, that you should just not go to high school. I think if you want to become a doctor or some of these things that you really need to go through these paths, and then of course, but my recommendation, you kind of get trapped, right? You have to go to school, then you're going to college, and then you have to get a job, or maybe you don't go to college, you get a job, and you're kind of, all of your time is always taken, right? You don't have just the time to experiment and do what you want to do. Instead of high school, that could be the time to time to do it. That's how it worked for me, and kind of where I got that big jump.
Which makes sense, because if you go the school and college route, by the time you're finally out of college and are ready to actually focus on work, you're 22, 24 years old, and by then someone like you is already done so much and way surpassed that.
Sure, yeah, sort of ahead of the game, but again, and I don't see it as like I'm so much further than people my age, and I'm competing with them, but it's more so like we're dying, and I just want to do things as fast as possible so that we don't die, right? That's kind of that's the point. So it all comes down to time. Like you have to find out how to get that time, and get to the point where you don't have to be worrying about rent next month, because then how are you going to sort of solve these world level problems, right? If you can't solve your own problems.
You got to get past those survival pressures before you can think about the bigger, more important things.
One thing that I've always kind of recommended is people. I feel like a lot of people's lives they create their own problems, and then they're jumping to solve those problems, and they create more problems. And it's all kind of this. What I recommend is I was extremely antisocial during these first years, because I didn't go to high school. I had just moved to Utah. I didn't even know anyone in the state other than my family. My parents were getting divorced at the time. It was just me for a very long time.
There's only a handful of people in the state anyways,
right? I know. It's like, it's middle of nowhere, right? And but I found that if you don't really have a lot of other people who oftentimes do bring problems, right? People kind of just come with their own problems, and you kind of just shut the curtains and shut out the outside world for a bit. If you do that for like a month, you a lot of these problems just kind of start going away, and if you get to that point where you feel like you've really gotten on top of everything, then I feel like you can start to look at these world level problems, and with a clear mind, and I don't know, maybe it's not the best advice for everyone to drop out of school and be antisocial for 10 years, but it's just, there are benefits. There are benefits to these things, and
I'll throw in a disclaimer for you. If you do that and you fail, he takes no responsibility. You have to make your own decisions, and you have to take your own responsibility.
Not financial advice.
So, how much do you know about the project I'm working with Immortalis?
No, I mean, you guys have given me the summary here, but this was my first. This was my opener. Opener to it. So I'm very excited to dive in more.
All right. Well, I'll give you a slightly more expanded overview.
Please.
So basically, we're trying to create a biotech freedom zone. So think like Singapore, Dubai.
It's a great name.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah.
Think Singapore, Dubai, Shenzhen, kind of these micro nations or micro city state type things. So using Singapore as the example, it took regulation in the financial sector and financial technology and kind of deregulated as much as they could, and because of that became the financial hub of the world. We want to do the same thing with biotech because somehow that hasn't been done yet. And in doing so, we want to create the environment and the space for the geniuses here, the scientists and the researchers, to come in and be able to do what they're already doing, but fast track the approvals through the regulatory agencies. And because the result of that is going to be it's cheaper to go through those trials, and it's going to reach market faster, which is going to entice investors to be more likely to actually put money into it because they actually see the end of the road where they can get return on their investment, as they should. And so all of that works together to ultimately save our lives. And that's a very quick thumbnail sketch of what we're trying to do.
It's these things are very important. It's if I don't know if you want to call this sort of broader field you're in, maybe network states or I don't know the best.
We're aware of biology, and actually Wallace, the co-founder that you've talked with, he's over there. Yeah. But he actually went to Singapore to the network state event in September, along with another member of our staff who's not here. Yeah, we actually took a lot of inspiration from that in how we're going about what we're doing. We are blending that with a little bit of the special economic zone idea. So what we're doing is very unique, but not unique in the sense that nothing about it has ever been tried, because we're pulling the best of a lot of great things together for the sake of, again, saving lives. And
we oftentimes... Maybe a good example. I gave a talk on this yesterday, where we had a rat walking around and sort of looking mostly healthy, and but the exciting thing is that 5 days prior to that, we fully transected the rat's spinal cord. So
wow.
And for lack of a better term, glued it back together, right? And sort of one of these missing pieces in the replacement field, and to do things like head transplants and whole body replacement is so really exciting work there. And really the only way that we're able to do these things, and we're moving very quickly into pigs and maybe even humans before long, is because we're actually doing it in Russia, right? And there's sort of these different parts of the world where some of the stuff can move faster, right? For various reasons. It depends on the technology and so on, where the researchers are, of course, as well. And this was, it's the only project we're doing in Russia, but just an example where something that hasn't been able to be done before, not in that way, we were able to do. And so I think, and I'm also aware of the network state stuff, and I followed that for a while, but also the special economic zones and some of these other organizations. There is kind of I think there's a portion of the field that the best word for them would just be a conference, right? And it's like it's like an extended conference and these sort of things. I think we do need to lean much more heavily into what it sounds like you guys are focusing on here, which is not just I love the community aspect, and these things are, in person is always great, but finding a way to really speed up these interventions, because it is a big piece of why I'm not extremely, I always end up kind of one of the more pessimistic ones at these events, which is, again, it's kind of funny to say for a guy that's doing head transplants and cryopreservation, right? It's like these things take a great deal of optimism, but I've been disillusioned with the progress and longevity for a long time, and a big part of that is regulation, right? These things that really slow the whole field down, and so I mean, really exciting stuff. I'll swing by. Maybe we'll do some research projects when this is more realized. I mean, it's super exciting.
We'll love to have you.
Yeah.
As a final thought, do you have anything you would want to say to the viewers? Something they could do maybe to help themselves, or on the flip side of that, something they could do if they chose to help you in your endeavors?
Yeah. Look, I mean, we have a lot of projects going on. We obviously have the pet cryopreservation coming up. So if anyone has pets, we would love to try to save them, right? Like that's sort of number one. Awesome. We have all these DAOs. They're called DAOs for a reason. They're quite open. Anyone who comes in and owns the token can then vote on proposals and sort of join the decision-making process, and or even just be part of it and see kind of behind the scenes of the research, because a lot of this stuff is, whether it's done through government funding and these sort of things, it's always quite closed off. And we sort of have this open process and very mission driven, and why we're funding certain projects that we are. And so yeah, a lot of ways to get involved in all these things. And I would just maybe, as always, I would say, you know, some people say crop preservation is always the plan B. I would just say, you know, I think it's probably many orders of magnitude easier to cryopreserve and rewarm a human brain than it is to cure aging. And I always just kind of want to put a little more pressure on let's not forget it. Let's make sure that works and not forget about it, and sort of just hope on these pills and stuff. And I also hope that in these places that you guys are making, we can also advance cryo replacement, a lot of these more radical things. I mean, where are we going to do the head transplants, right? So you know, it's probably going to be these unique places that sort of allow us to do things like that. So anyway, you know, super excited about it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
This has been great.
Yeah.